Hey, yo.
What's up?
Welcome back to the, what edition are we on right now?
34.
34?
34 episodes.
Episode 34 of the Who F Knows podcast. Coming at you live, or not live, delayed, from Bar Revs. Yeah, that's right. Bar Revs tonight. The first time in person at a bar. It's kind of our vibe, and we have a special guest for the first time. Or not the first time special guest. Sorry to anybody else out there that we had on. Maddy Hudak of Tulane fame. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Feel like I'm back at the boot already.
Yeah, it's very, very boot feeling. So we're at Bar Revs today. They actually are having an opening day party for baseball season. Note the Texas Rangers shirt over here with Dave.
My love for baseball will not be repressed today. It will not.
There you go. All right, well.
That's all I got.
Yeah. No, fun times here, though. It's really cool. There's a lot of people in here enjoying themselves. So anybody looking for a bar in Metairie, it's on Airline Highway. What is it, 4401, I think? We'll shout it out again later. But today we want to get into some Tulane athletics, Tulane football specifically. Wanted to start with kind of introducing Maddy here. You know, we'll have a hell of a hullabaloo discussion. Anybody out there that knows what I'm talking about, hopefully you chuckled a little bit. But yeah, Maddy, tell me a little bit about kind of how you came to be a part of the Tulane media scene, and just about yourself. I would love to just talk.
For sure. First of all, that just took me back to orientation when I heard Hell of a Hullabaloo for the first time, and that was the first time my brain truly glitched out in a real-life setting. That being said, now I understand kind of the purpose behind it because everyone can remember it at games. So speaking of that, I went to Tulane. I was class of 2016, and I went there for psychology. Then I went into law, and then the pandemic happened, and I realized that I didn't really like doing any of the things that I had tried so far. I tried 3 career paths. I had 2 degrees, and I felt like I hadn't progressed at all since leaving Tulane. So when I got laid off during the pandemic, I had started writing about the Saints, actually, if you can see the flag in the corner. And kind of, just to be honest, took advantage of unemployment for that time period. I was living in Pennsylvania at the time against my better judgment, and my family recommended that I come move back here, and so I came back down here. I kind of stumbled into the Tulane job. I don't know if you guys know Todd Graffanini. He's the Pelicans play caller, and he was the voice of the Green Wave for 30-odd years or so. He's kind of been my mentor. I kind of met him on Twitter during the pandemic, and he's really good friends with Corey Glure, who's the new voice of the Green Wave. And so they were kind of looking for a sideline reporter that was able to travel and be at all the games and really want to be there and promote Tulane. And again, as someone that went there but didn't really get to experience Yeoman Stadium until my senior year, and I had gone actually to 1 game in the Superdome, and then I never went back. My move-in weekend was actually Hurricane Isaac. And it's definitely not that bad on the scale of hurricanes, but it was the last time I should say, that Tulane housed people on campus. And so after a few days of sleeping in the hallway with our dorm blankets, we were taken to a Tulane game as a treat. And it kind of felt like Stockholm Syndrome at that point, to be honest with you, where we didn't really want to be there, and we just had no reason to care about Tulane football. We'd been there for 3 days. At that point in 2012, it had no momentum whatsoever, and then it's sad being in a stadium of 80,000 capacity with our freshman body class. It was like when I went during the pandemic to a Saints game, that's what it felt like, and it's just, when you can hear yourself echoing from across and see absolutely no one in front of you, it's just a sad environment. So Yeoman Stadium, it was my junior year. I was abroad, which is the year that everyone dropped like flies versus Georgia Tech, and the reason why we don't have afternoon games in September anymore. But Yeoman Stadium really did a lot, and that's kind of my fonder memories, and really having actually a memory of Tulane football I don't think would have existed because I never went to a game again after that first one. Yeah. Besides at Yeoman.
I don't necessarily blame you. I grew up. I had season tickets that were given to me back in those years when I would sit in the club level, and I thought I was fancy, sitting in the club level at a Tulane game in the Dome. But you look around and there's no one there. I mean, I can remember games against Southeastern. There's 4,000 people in a 80,000 seat stadium. Like it was not the best experience. So I totally get it. But no, Yeoman is beautiful. I love it. And you've been able to experience a lot of really cool moments at Yeoman. Specifically, one amazing catch this year from Cobra Kai Horton.
That was technically in Houston.
It was in Houston?
Yes.
Oh, my God, it was. Okay, I'm already messing up. But it was still beautiful, okay? It doesn't matter. But no,
I think you were taken out on that play, weren't you?
Yeah, don't leave your microphone on the ground when you're watching a game because someone might roll up on it, then you'll have to dive forward against your instincts. So, yes.
It's all right. It's worth it, though, right?
100% worth it.
Totally worth it. We had a few things we wanted to dive into here. I know, Dave, you had a better flow. I wrote down some topics, but why don't you kick us off here?
Yeah, so to start it off, what everybody knows about Tajay now. I think he's really since like almost Matt Forte, the biggest name from
hell yeah.
Tulane, right? So you've been to the practices and everything this year. Is there anybody this year that you think could maybe not be that level, but somebody to watch out for?
I mean, specifically at running back, I am very intrigued by their new freshman running back, Arnold Barnes, who had originally committed to Nebraska. He's a local guy, though, and they got him to commit here. I think that 50% of their recruiting class this year came from Louisiana, which is really important for Tulane. But he's built like Michael Turner in terms of stature. His lower body, he's just really like a thick guy. But he's quick. He has really good initial quickness. He has good balance, good speed. And really has been impressive so far, even though he's just been there for a few weeks. I think they really shine in the transfer portal, and I think a lot of the secondary players that they've gotten there, Andre Sam sticks out to me in the transfer portal, and then a lot of speed that they brought in at wide receiver with Keith Brown and Dante Fleming, and that complements their current room with Lawrence Keys and Jaquan Jackson. It really is a different-looking team, but I think it'll also be one that's led a lot more by Michael Pratt this season. I mean, I know Willie Fritz is a run-first philosophy kind of guy, but when you have a generational talent like Tajay Spears, it's really easy to lean into that. But I think we'll see kind of more of the year of the quarterback this season. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, you mentioned Keith. He's somebody I'm really excited about. I just told you I'm a Miami fan, and he's from South Florida, and they were really into getting him. So I know a lot about him. So as soon as I saw he transferred over here, I told him I'm super excited about him. On that topic, so he's a transfer. You had people last year like Jarius come in and be major contributors, and I know there's a lot of spotlight on him this year. How do you feel overall, like the new age of college football, the transfer portal, NIL a little bit? I think personally, I think the transfer portal is more of a impactful thing than NIL. How do you think that impacts like Tulane or smaller schools like Tulane? You think it's good, bad?
I think in general for smaller schools, it's not a great thing, but I think Tulane, it really flies under the radar how little that's all affected them. I mean, think about the fact that only one starter transferred after the 2-10 season, and they didn't have really that many guys enter the portal after this season either, and what they gained in the portal were legitimate starters like Jarius Monroe, like Lummy Young, who came in, and Jarius Monroe proved extremely helpful when Jaden Kennedy went down for the season. Lawrence Keys, guys that also are from Louisiana. I think they really have like a keen understanding of the fact that some guys do want to come back and have their family come to games and kind of feel that again. They go away to school, they kind of get sold on a big name, and then they feel homesick. In that same way that Nick Anderson was choosing between Ole Miss and Tulane, even though he's not from here, it feels like home to him. And I think that through the Wave Collective, the way that they've incorporated charitable giving into that, they're one of the top G5 programs in terms of being able to fund things, including, being able to retain Michael Pratt, who I know was enticed by the transfer portal, but they have such a strong collective. And it really is also, it's impactful. They do things with it that matters. It's not just flashy brand deals. It's partnering with organizations like Son of a Saint. And those guys really put the time in. The week of the Cincinnati game, they're at the Children's Hospital, they're at Son of the Saint, the same thing with the championship game, when they had all the reason to go to the boot, go to the Palms, and let off some steam. And that's not to say they never did that, but they also took the time in their community. And so I think Tulane has their finger on the pulse on that in a way that a lot of G5 programs just don't.
I've said that the transfer portal is good for people like Tulane because, I mean, like you look at Keith, like he's a 4-star recruit, goes to A&M, not really getting the playing time. He's going to come here. I'm assuming he's going to be one of the featured guys in the offense. So I think it just those guys that maybe they're a little impatient at the bigger schools come here, and they're going to make an immediate impact. And the more – it might be maybe now that Tulane is winning, they can get some more 4-star recruits in here. But in the past, it was hard for them to do that,
I just want to say what stuck out to me the most after the spring game was our transfer linebacker, Tyler Grubbs, who I think is a really sick player, and he made like an interception off his head during the game. He went out there and he started talking about how he wanted to transfer somewhere and go where they're winning and they're contending for that ring, and Tulane's a group of winners. And I turned around to Steve Barrios, who's our radio color analyst who is a former player. He's been 40 years in the broadcast booth. And I'm like, have you ever heard a player come in here and say that describing Tulane? So last season really, it has a legacy that's already palpable.
Right, that's crazy because it's only 1 year.
Right.
Well, I think Willie Fritz has done an excellent job of establishing himself as that front-runner coach. Not a front-runner coach, but a top-tier coach. He's able to develop talent. He's able to really turn programs around. And I think just even diving into that a little more, it says a lot that even you mentioned Michael Pratt like being enticed by other places. I mean, Willie Fritz was enticed by other places, and he chose to stay. So it says a lot that a lot of guys are deciding to stay here. Just as a fun question, do you think it's anything with the city of New Orleans or, Tulane's always ranked as like one of the top fun schools,
right?
From
I wonder
all those schools
why.
out there. Right, yeah. Exactly. Do you think there's anything to that with some of these transfers as well?
In terms of wanting to come to Tulane?
Yeah.
So I think there's the perception of Tulane as this kind of work hard, play hard school, but at the end of the day, it is a really good degree to have. And it's an opportunity that a lot of guys otherwise wouldn't get if not for football. So especially in the transfer portal, being able to get that degree, because the reality is most guys aren't going to the NFL. So to have that stability and the ability to have a career, especially in the transfer portal, to get a graduate degree from Tulane, I mean, that value just can't be understated enough.
Right.
But I also think it doesn't only affect the football players, but I just want to say I think that admissions spiked something like 80% after the Cotton Bowl win. So it does go to show, even though we're an academic school that's known for partying, football really does end up mattering at the end of the day. And I think they're really marrying the three of those things together in a way that I don't think anyone ever really thought was feasible, just with the decades of turmoil between the administration, the athletics department, and lack of cohesion. You brought up Willie Fritz, Georgia Tech thing, the way that they all came together with Mike Fitz and Troy Dannon and Willie Fritz all putting out that statement. That was the first time that there really has been that type of symbiosis between all of those different departments. Yeah,
for sure. And I mean, it's music to the ears of longtime Tulane fans, because for years you would hear there was a commitment to sports, things like that.
And they almost voted to get rid of it.
Right. So, but now you win a Cotton Bowl, and all of a sudden admissions spike, and it's overall it's good for the community, the college overall. Like I was saying, it's just something that people don't take into account a lot, and it definitely says a lot. Another thing you said, and I can tell you're a pro at this because it transitions very well. You said people come here for the education, things like that. Not everybody's going to make the pros. There are a few guys that are going to make the pros this year, and probably next year, and probably the year after that. Specifically this year, there's 6 guys that are draft eligible that are pretty.
We had 11 prospects at Pro Day.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. That's amazing. When have we last heard that? Right? When have you last heard there's at least 2 guys that could go in the top 4 rounds? Right? This is amazing. So let's talk a little bit about that. Obviously, Tajay, Dorian. I'm a Deuce guy. I know there's multiple other guys that are in this draft, but let's just kind of run through that. Is there anybody in this class that you think may surprise us? And also touch on Tajay and Dorian. Let's just go through it.
Sure. Are you asking if Tulane fans will be surprised or if the world will be surprised? Because if it's the latter, then Nick Anderson, and it's not even close. He gets all of this flack for being a short linebacker. I don't see how you watch how him and Dorian played as just a tandem all season long. Nick's either the leading tackler or he's the second leading tackler or he's the co-leading tackler alongside Dorian Williams. They led the team in all but 2 or 3 games this season. I think Macon Clark had the other couple ones of them. Just his impact when he came back the season before that after breaking his leg and was the leading tackler in 3 of the 6 games. You don't have that type of production. You can't throw that all away and just say that a guy is short, but you also can't discount the fact that he pretty much single-handedly spearheaded the greatest single-season turnaround in college football history.
Yeah.
All of the captains are absolutely involved in that, but when Nick Anderson talks, everyone stops and listens. He even told me after the Southern Miss loss that he interrupted Willie Fritz in the locker room, and I think I could count on one hand. It's probably Willie Fritz's wife and Nick Anderson that would be okay with, because he's so commanding. He has such a presence, and he's such a leader in ways that just transcend football. Think about the Ole Miss game. His sister got in a major car accident 2 days before that. She needed facial reconstruction surgery, and this whole time he's in his head thinking, this is the team that I really wanted to play for, and he ends up breaking his leg, playing 3 quarters through that, and then comes back in half the recovery time. I just think height of his character is so much taller than he is, but then you also look at his vertical, which was taller than Dorian Williams, and his broad jump and his 40, and I don't really see how you can't see that the tape and the numbers at this point are measuring up, just not for the height. And then, the draft guys, it's obvious. I think Tyjae Spears is going to be a generational star, and I think he could surpass Matt Forte in the NFL because I think that they had a very similar skill sets, but I think the NFL is leaning more into those skill sets nowadays and using the running backs out of the backfield more as pass catchers. And you brought up that Kai Horton pass, and that was a wide receiver type catch by Tyjae Spears.
Absolutely.
Like, the reason I reacted the way I did was because that window was so small, and credit to Kai Horton for being able to thread that in there, but just his hands, he's so sure and so fundamentally sound. And then just to touch on Dorian Williams really quickly, I was just watching back the UCF game, and the amount of he had 7 pass deflections last year, and those could have easily been interceptions, and that's something that's so easily coachable, but you can't teach a guy to have an eye for the ball, to keep their eyes on the quarterback while dropping back into coverage, and really just be a ball hawk and be able to blitz at the same time. They're all just such really good players, and they played against guys like Deuce Vaughn and shut him down, and they've shut down I guess shut down Caleb Williams is a relative term, but he's a Heisman Trophy winner. What are they going to do? But I think that they'd shown their ability. I think like 3 of the leading rushers in the conference are all on UCF's team. And in the championship game, they ultimately got the better of them. So I think from Deuce Watts to Shea Wyatt, I think Will Wallace has a place in the NFL with his blocking ability. He was in front of Tajay on almost every single play. Even Tylo Phillips, he had really good one-on-one time in his coaching drills at Pro Day. And then I think if you pick from Lemmy Young, Larry Brooks, and Macon Clark, you have ball-hawking secondary players that love to stop the run. And again, that's something that I don't think you can always teach in players.
I love this. I love so much that I even started this by saying, there's like 6 guys, and you just went down a list, like you said, of 11 that are all potential NFL players, and rightfully so. I mean, the talent that they have there is phenomenal, and I see you wanting to say something, so I'm going to shut up.
She talked about, like, Nick Anderson, and just you mentioned the film. That's something we talk about with Deuce all the time. Like, if you look at his numbers, they may not be
He
there.
should have, like, 6 more catches,
Absolutely.
and those incompletions were absolute BS in terms of the rulings.
But sometimes we talk about it all the time. And he is the player that made us have this conversation. Sometimes it's like you just turn on the film and you're like, this guy can, like, he can play.
Oh,
and it's with him. Same thing with Nick. It's like teams get so caught up in the combine numbers or whatever, or stats just in general. And we're big. We love Deuce. Like, Deuce is the player, I think, outside of Tajay, obviously, that we just hammered home all year. Like, this guy deserves to be on a team.
His contested catchability is bar none.
Every time they needed a big catch, it felt like it was Deuce.
Yeah.
I was just about to say, I think what goes under the radar in the Cotton Bowl, and it was unfortunately because he was knocked out of the game, was that extremely crucial catch that got them to the red zone for Alex Bauman to be able to score. Just, like you said, whenever they needed a reliable guy. In the Cincinnati game, when they were down 3 after leading the entire time with 2 minutes left, finds Deuce Watts. Same thing in the UCF game. And like you said, his contested catch ability, he's caught balls over receivers' heads before, or defensive backs' heads. And like I said, he should have several more catches on the season. But I think Michael Pratt, his trust in him and the size that he put on after his first season, and not to mention losing his twin brother to an ACL tear right before the season opener, and them always playing together. And so him really just growing into his own.
Opa.
Party foul. But like you said, I think so many of these guys go under the radar, even honestly Tajay Spears until the Senior Bowl. And then everyone from Tulane sitting here going, yeah, we know. We've been seeing this all season. Where have you all been? I think Tulane this year is really going to be a lesson in who watches tape and who actually looks for good players and doesn't just focus on good programs. Because when you're a scout, you have to take the program into account, but they're not scouting teams as a whole. You're scouting players, and there can be special players on any team. And I think Tulane, their ability to recruit and their ability to find those guys in the transfer portal showed last season in spades. And I think they're really going to prove it this season because spotlight's on them now.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And that's the biggest struggle. I mean, the spotlight's on them now, right? I mean, obviously the conference is slightly different. There's some big games. I mean, you have Ole Miss coming week 2, I think.
Yeah.
Which is going to be amazing. I can't wait to be there. What is your outlook, though, on this upcoming season? Let's talk about that. Like, what are your expectations? What do you think is going to happen?
I don't see why they shouldn't be talked about as conference favorites at this point. I'm laughing as I'm saying that because, again, it's just incredulous to think that I'm talking about Tulane. But in all sincerity, they beat the top of the top last year, and those guys aren't even in the conference anymore. They don't have to deal with Houston in overtime with their third-string quarterback. They don't have to go to Cincinnati and snap a 32-home game winning streak, which, again, flew extremely under the radar at that. Thinking of the teams that have gone to Cincinnati in recent years, yeah, UCF got them in the regular season, but they beat them in the championship game when it mattered. And it was really just John Rice Plumlee turning into Taysom Hill, quite frankly, that really put that game into a hole. And then you think about the fact that Michael Pratt was playing hurt that whole time, too, with his heel. So those teams are all gone. The teams that they added, I think there's competition. I think that UTSA final season game will probably be looked at as maybe decide the conference championship. I think that Ole Miss game, though, that you mentioned is really one of those bulletin board material type things where, to me, that's where everything in 2021 went downhill. Like, I think it mentally and physically broke that team. That rain delay. Remember Willie telling us he felt like he played the pregame music too early because then they were all just sitting there for 2 hours and they brought all of its players there and there wasn't enough room for them, and naturally Ole Miss wouldn't let them inside their indoor practice facility, so they were sitting out in the tunnel getting rained on before this game after they spent 3 weeks in a renovated hotel with no amenities. And then, again, Nick Anderson breaks his fibula in the first quarter. He played through it, but Michael Pratt gets hurt. All these players go down, and it's still raining. It's miserable, and it just started this spiral that they were never able to climb out of. And you heard Michael Pratt after the championship game say he couldn't wait to get another shot at Lincoln Riley, and that's pretty aggressive to say as a player, like about another team's head coach. But to his credit, he showed exactly why he should be able to say that. I know that Oklahoma game, again, was one of those personal games for them. So I think if they're able to beat Ole Miss in week 2, there's no reason why they shouldn't run the table this year. Thinking about all the things that had to happen last season and everything they were fighting against perception-wise, only being the ones to believe in themselves, this year I think their biggest battle will be actually having expectations and a spotlight put on them, and they won't be viewed as a team that no one saw coming.
Yeah. I love it too. The 2021 year in particular was a year that I look at as such a, not a letdown, but just it was upsetting, right? Starting against Oklahoma so strong. I was so excited. I can remember I was in Orlando because I had evacuated for the storm just like the team did. I was somewhere
in Florida too. I actually didn't go to that game, but
yeah. Well, and it was such a phenomenal game, and I remember sitting there, and that was actually my silver lining of being in some random hotel room in Orlando. I was like, this is phenomenal. Tulane's going to be good. They took Oklahoma to the wire. Like, this is amazing. And then the wheels kind of came off. So then, like, knowing that, seeing how well they played, and then coming into this year and seeing that team come into this year and perform how they did it was a surprise at first, but like then it just became the norm, which is really exciting. So seeing that same team and that same mindset, especially with Michael Pratt, come into this next season with him just kind of being a killer. Like he's a guy I have sung praises on for the last 2 years. I've told everybody, people ask me like, is he gonna be a starting quarterback in the NFL? I don't know, but what I do know is that he's tough mentally, he's tough physically, he's a phenomenal guy. He makes all the right decisions, he makes all the right choices. Like, you're not gonna beat him. He's not gonna lose. Like, he's just that type of dude that's just gonna will his team to victory. So I don't know. Do you see him as I guess what I'm getting at, do you see him as a top quarterback in the entire NCAA next season? Because that's something I'm always thinking about for him.
I do, and I think it's another timing thing because if Tajay's here, then you rely more on the run game because you have a player like Tajay, but they're not going to have that this year. It's also the first year he's really been healthy, and the first year he's going to have consistency at offensive coordinator. Just to think about the fact that he was homeschooled until 9th grade. He didn't play football at all until high school. And quarterback is the most mentally demanding position. You have to know what every single player on the, I guess you don't have to, but he always knows where every single person on the offensive line is supposed to be, all of the assignments, to accumulate all of that and have 8 different offensive coordinators while doing so. You think about Baker Mayfield flailing in the NFL, but Michael Pratt just kind of stares adversity in the face and then just gets tougher. Like that Oklahoma game, he was beat to crap, for lack of a better term. Same with the Ole Miss game. He fought through that. The only time that he really couldn't fight through it was when he got concussed in the SMU game that year. But again, playing through the broken thing in his heel last season, having to make the comeback in the Cotton Bowl. 1 minute left, no timeouts. Alex Bauman is tight end 1 now because Tyreek James and Will Wallace are injured. Deuce Watts gets concussed and taken out of the game. And you can't hand the ball off at that point because of all the factors that I just mentioned. And he's able to drive them down there. He's able to use his legs, and he's been so much smarter about using his legs. I just think And I actually just started rewatching the UCF championship game, and I forgot how great of throws that he made in that game too. Yeah. And you brought up like how smart of a player is. He's such a good decision maker. He takes such good care of the football. To have 27 touchdowns and like 5 interceptions.
That's amazing.
That's numbers that should get more attention than they do. He improved his completion percentage by almost 10% last season. He spread the ball out to like 12 different receivers. And he told us recently that he actually watches Drew Brees' game film, which was a little surprising to me, but I really respected that answer. And it explains a lot to me about his cerebral understanding of the game and his pocket awareness that has just really grown to me. And I just think that having chemistry with these guys, he said that he's really, loved having Slade Nagel around his entire tenure. He finally has that stability, and they're finally going to kind of lead with him. So I think really that this year could be a career-defining season and potentially change Michael Pratt's life.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. Do you have any thoughts?
I mean, I agree with everything she said.
Yeah. No, I felt the same way. I'm just sitting here listening. I'm like, yeah, yes, uh-huh.
Yeah, no, he does not get talked enough about.
No, he doesn't.
It's funny because it's like, a knock on him, and it's not a knock, but people are going to say, oh, he played for Tulane, and he's not playing the competition. Right. But we mentioned it. He had the chance. He could have went play. Was it Florida? I think Florida was kind of looking around at him. He could have went play SEC ball, and he probably would have been just fine playing there. And he chose to stay here. So it's.
I mean, yes, like I don't ever look at the whole he played for Tulane thing as like
I'm not saying I do either. It's
I know. But you've had multiple quarterbacks come out of Tulane in the last 2 decades or 3 decades or whatever. Like there's been guys. I mean, J.P. Lossman, Patrick Ramsey,
Sam, yeah.
Sean King. There's been guys that have come out of Tulane that have been good quarterbacks, and then you even had recently. What's his name? RG4. That's what I'm going to call him because I can't think of his full name right now. Ryan
Griffin?
Ryan Griffin, yeah.
To be honest, I would not put Michael Pratt in this. I think that he's better than Ryan Griffin.
Oh, absolutely.
And Nick Montana was a quarterback when I went there, and as much as you think that the genetics would kick in there, it really didn't.
They did not.
And I just to say, like, I think you can have that issue at small schools, but I think it depends on what your offensive coordinator is giving the quarterback, and he's not running a one-read offense. He goes through his progressions. He has to make actual decisions out there. He reads the defense. He sets checks. He changes play calls. He looks guys off. He just does so much.
He does everything that you want.
Need in that transition to the NFL. Most importantly, taking care of the football. To be honest,
and he's enough of a dual threat that he fits every style of offense you want to play now.
Can we just acknowledge before we move on to something more fun? Well, this is fun. His flip across the goal line that he's done probably 10 or 15 times now. Like that's got to be a signature move, right? Like it's clearly like a finger roll.
Madden's got to get him in a little
suit.
It's
like a gallop.
That's his thing. Like we got to put the animation in the game. Like that's him. Nobody else is doing it.
I love that.
Give it to him.
He got hops. I will say that.
He does. He's a fun player to watch. I love it. I'm out of actual Tulane topics. Those are the ones I wanted to cover, but I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything before.
You had written down about joining another.
Oh
conference.
Yes, I did. Let's talk about that. Do you have thoughts? Because there's been whispers about Pac-12. There's been talks for years about other programs or conferences. Do you have thoughts on that? Do you want them to join a Power 5 conference? I mean, obviously the answer is probably yes, but like there's nuances to it. So let's talk through that.
Yeah, I think if you'd asked me this question last year, looking at what Tulane was the year prior, you'd be a little nervous, but they beat the Big 12 champs last year. I know that USC lost to Utah, but again, they're playing the Heisman winner out of a Pac-12 school. They've shown to me that they can hang with every single team. Even though they lost to Oklahoma, they still showed that they could hang with the big dogs there. So I think if you get an invite to a Power 5 conference, you go. There's a selfish part of me that would enjoy the Pac-12 because I'm from California, so it would give me a lot of reason to go home fairly often. But, yeah, I don't know what it really takes for a school to be looked at. And I know all of the conferences have different parameters. I think Tulane could also easily stay and make a run at the conference for a few years, but then it just becomes a question of, when do other schools get poached? It's such a messy situation that I just quite frankly think if you get an invite and it's clean, that you kind of just take it before things get even more in flux. But I don't think that they're necessarily overly focusing on that. They're really just focusing on kind of running the table on the conference, but I think that they would be a fit, academically speaking, and I think that they have the football now to match what you're looking for in a Power 5 conference. And if you can make that argument for Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF, I understand it's more than just last season, but to me, they stood above all of them last year. So,
absolutely. I mean, they beat every good team that was put in front of them last year. Like, they lost to some teams that they shouldn't have lost to, if you ask me.
Yeah, one coached by Michael Pratt's first offensive
There you
coordinator
go.
while he had a hurt shoulder and all these things went wrong. But, yeah, I mean, you're not going to win every single football team, but it's more like even in their UCF loss, they still showed that they had the mental toughness and the ability to hang in that game till the end. And 90% of teams are checking out at the end of that Cotton Bowl.
Yeah.
And that's the fight that I think you could say Tulane could hang with anyone for that reason alone.
That was one of my, and I mean, obviously I'm biased, but that was one of my favorite football games I've watched in my entire life. I mean, I watched the Saints win the Super Bowl. Like, that was such a phenomenal game. I can remember, I think I told him, we're in the middle of the fourth quarter or maybe the end of the third quarter or something. And I'm like, man, there's nothing we can do. We are not going to be able to stop them, even if we keep scoring.
It was like 6 to 8 minutes left.
Yeah.
And we were like, let's start making our plans for after.
I was like, it is
like,
what it is.
This was fun, but,
I was like, we had a great showing. We proved we belonged, but I don't think we can stop them, and it is what it is. It's Caleb Williams is phenomenal. He's a Heisman winner for a reason. But then they made a few mistakes and allowed us the opportunity, and the rest is history. So
16 points in 4 minutes. I'm not a religious person. I started praying to people, and then that player fumbled at the one, and I just looked up, and I'm like, okay, I feel like I did something. I don't know what. Portal just opened, but in that moment, I knew Tulane was winning. That might be a hindsight is 2020. But I'm very much a Destiny person, and that moment felt like Destiny.
So we're convinced. We had somebody else watching the game with us. The second he left was when they fumbled on the one, and we're convinced he's the reason.
My 100%. Mom, she went to the bathroom, and I scored my one and only goal in soccer. So she's told to leave when we need things to happen. So trust me, I get that.
Get out. Get out. That's funny. No, I think that's a whole nother conversation. We don't have to dive down that hole, but just like the way you approach games. Like, I wear the same shirt for certain games. I wear the same jersey for certain games.
I brought the AAC championship confetti in my pocket
there you
to
go.
the Cotton Bowl, so
because you knew.
Same shoes all year, but
there you go. Are you wearing them now?
I am.
Hell yeah. I love it. I actually like those.
Tulane shoes, yeah. They're I thought that was some university special, and it was just randomly cobalt green and blue shoes. Click.
Very cool.
Yeah, no, my grandma is the same way. Like, with the Saints, for as long as I can remember, if she refuses, I've offered to take. She's the biggest Saints fan I know.
Yeah.
And I've offered to take her to games and all this, and she's like, I got to be on my spot. I cannot go. She's like, I would love to go to a game, but I can't leave my spot.
Is it like a spot on the couch?
It's just a spot on the couch.
And you yell at people when they come over, thinking you're gonna have a nice, fun outing, and it's like, get out of my spot.
People come over. They're not allowed over. She's like, if you aren't here, if you go to her house and they lose, you can kiss any other chance goodbye.
I was trying not to go down this rabbit hole, but the year that the Saints won the Super Bowl, I had a Marcus Colston jersey that I wore the whole year, and to this day, I still wear a Marcus Colston jersey for almost every Saints game, just because of it. He hasn't played for the team in like a decade.
I still wear my Deuce McAllister jersey. That's a youth large I bought when I was 11, and it is fraying at the seams at this point, but
it's only weird if it doesn't work.
It's just about to say that. And it's usually weird when it does work, but I just don't care.
No,
and that's my motto.
Then it's the reason it worked. Like, then it's the reason the team won. You're the reason. That's fine. Let's talk karaoke. We wanted to have fun at the end of this to close it out. We've probably been talking for 40, 45 minutes, something like that. We've had a good discussion. We like to have top 5 lists normally to close this thing out. We're going to do a top 3 tonight, and we're going to do top 3 karaoke songs. I know I gave you a heads up. I'm glad I did because I didn't want to put you on the spot. Do you want to start, Dave? We'll just count down. We'll probably go in order, like 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, something like that. Let's do that.
So I don't know. We had a little bit of a conversation beforehand. I don't know that this is a karaoke song. I told him it's almost guilty pleasure songs in a way, and he says it's different. So this could be a conversation. But my number 3 is Country Grammar by Nelly.
Are they supposed to be ranked?
No.
You can. Okay. You don't have to, but you can just throw them out.
No, just give us 3.
No, because I was thinking that too, because one time in a bar I got swindled into doing Timber, and it's really not easy to sing that fast, and my friends all stopped talking. So I'm kind of with you on the guilty pleasure thing. I'll go I Just Want to Live by Good Charlotte.
That's fun. If we're talking guilty pleasure and a song I know every single word to, I'm going All Star by Smash Mouth.
They performed at Tulane when I was abroad, and I'm still bitter about it to this day.
Why?
because I wasn't there.
Oh, okay.
I was in South Africa.
I tell my wife all the time. I worked in Disney years ago, and we go to Disney periodically for Food and Wine Festival. Smash Mouth performs every year, Eat to the Beat, and every time I'm there, people are like, "Oh, Smash Mouth's performing." People don't realize how many hit songs Smash Mouth has, and how much fun you can have listening to that type of band. It's phenomenal.
My number 2, I say number 2. We count down 5 to 1 whenever we do our top 5s. That's why I'm doing number 2. But Pour Some Sugar on Me.
Okay.
Is my number 2.
Okay.
I have no idea why. Just love that song.
I'm learning so much about you, and it's fine.
Mine are like really weird. I don't know if they necessarily sum up my music taste. My second to be Feeling This by Blink-182.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. Now I need a Blink-182 song. Like, there's so many that just ran through my head.
It's tough. Like, coming up with 3 was not the problem. Narrowing it down to 3 is the issue here.
I'm actually going super corny songs purposely because they're fun, and there's songs on my list that coincide with baseball because it's opening day. So this one definitely goes with baseball. I'm going Sweet Caroline. It's come on. Like, what needs to be said, right?
Yeah. Nope, of course. My number 1 is Man, I Feel Like a Woman. Or just Shania Twain in general.
That is such a good answer, honestly.
Any Shania Twain song. We could go all
I love
day.
it. Shania's coming soon, by the way.
Really?
I know.
Yeah, she's coming to New Orleans very soon. 2 months from now, I think. Are you going?
No, I've been once. When she came a few years ago. My mom got me tickets for my birthday to go see Shania because of how big of a Shania Twain fan I am.
I love that. So now I'm like tempted to change my answer to That Don't Impress Me Much, but I'll stick with my original, which was Moneymaker by Ludacris.
Oh, I love it.
6th grade throwback.
My favorite. This isn't the song I'm choosing.
And just to be clear, this is not my. I guess it's not my music taste. I was gonna say an Andre Nicotina song, and I think that would go over everyone's heads. That lives here because he's a West Coast guy, but.
That's fair. That's fair. Nothing wrong with that. My favorite rendition of any song I've ever seen live, at karaoke, I should say, was this little white girl from the Midwest when I had a business trip out there, singing Bodak Yellow by Cardi B. Phenomenal. Loved it. It was so much fun. She got it. It was amazing.
Hell yeah.
With that being said, I'm going Mr. Brightside by the Killers.
That's a good one.
As my number 1.
Of course.
No. What else you got?
I don't know.
I mean, I have like a really bizarre story of when my childhood soccer team, we went to a karaoke bar. Apparently they hadn't updated their catalog for 30 years, so my friend and I at age 11 sang Hotel California and I Shot the Sheriff as our karaoke songs of choice. It's like the most morose, and we're like, what are these sad, slow songs? I obviously didn't know any of these songs when I was like 11 years old, so...
I love it.
I was tempted to say that here, but I wouldn't have been able to get through it with a straight face. Just be like, yeah, I shot the sheriff.
I would have just been like,
it's a really slow karaoke song.
You do you. That's funny. I guess we should close it out, though. We can hang after if y'all want, but we can close this out. That's it for tonight. We'll shout out a few places, though. We got to shout out Bar Revs for letting us hang out here, record. Drew's great, owner of Bar Revs. Just opened this place, 6 months ago, something like that. He won Bartender of the Year a couple years ago in New Orleans.
Bartender by T-Pain is also top karaoke song.
There you go.
Very true.
Very true. I love it. Yeah. Outside of that, we also have follow us everywhere at who effing knows, at Be in the Know, at the Dave, or what's your Twitter?
At Dave Rainey.
At Dave Rainey. At
the Dave Rainey. Sorry, I don't know. I just changed it like 2 months ago.
Yeah. All these different places to follow
now you're
us.
a bot forever. So.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
At the Patty V. Maddie, this is the opportunity for you to shout out anything you want, talk about anything you're going to do. Let's hear it.
Sure, yeah. I would really recommend reading my pieces on Tajay and Nick, because it really just, Nick, if you want to hear really how this team turned around, and then if you just really want to see how a guy fights adversity in so many ways. So I would really recommend those two things. I'm kind of in a down period now that spring camp is done. I'm really just looking forward to the draft. I kind of want to keep up with these guys. I'm still working on learning scouting myself, so stay tuned for more coming from me. Otherwise, I'm always on Twitter at Maddy Hudak _94.
There you go. Awesome. Well, until next time, that's it. That's all we got. Who effing knows?
Later.